Hello, my name is Fatima Alouda. I'm going to share with you a review of mechanism and causal explanation and causal inference. This review is based on the book Counterfactuals and Causal Inference by Stephen Morgan and Christopher Winship. This presentation is divided to three parts. First, we'll go through definitions of causal explanations and mechanisms, and then why is mechanism-based causal explanation is important in causal inference. And finally, how does it work by illustrating an example by a study done by Winship and Harding. What is causal explanation? In order to answer this question, for decades now, social scientists and philosophers of science have been in a quest to verify causal relationships by empirical means. Researchers in causality who are in causal explanation and mechanism camp argued that counterfactual estimation of the effect of the cause on the outcome does not account for how the effect had actually happened. In a review paper of mechanism-based explanation, Hedstrom and Kowalski used the metaphor of black box to show how mechanism-based explanation is capable of turning a black box into a transparent one, making it visible how the participating entities and their properties, activities, and relations produce the effect of interest. They also mentioned a list of several definitions that have been introduced by social scientists in the last decade. Among those, there are three shared components. A mechanism has a structure, it's identified by the kind of effect it brings, and finally, it's an irreducible causal notion. To add some context to mechanisms in causal inference, Hedstrom and Kowalski show how mechanism and causal explanation and mechanism and counterfactual overlap. First, mechanism and causal explanation. A mechanism is needed for a scientific explanation of a causal relationship. And when it comes to mechanism and counterfactual, where counterfactual is an estimation of what would have happened if the cause had been different, mechanism informs why the counterfactual dependency holds the facts and the events of the counterfactual to the knowledge about objects and relations underlying it. In order to identify and estimate causal effects, researchers are prone to do natural experiments, since there lies naturally occurring variables, which ensure randomness and thus can help establish a causal relationship. And a famous example of natural experiments is the effect of education on wages, using the instrumental variable quarter of birth. In the diagram shown, X represents education, Y is the wages, Z is quarter of birth. However, Rosenzweig and Wolpen illustrated the absence of deep causal explanation in this example. They argued that the causal diagram does not represent a full causal effect of how education affects wages, but rather representing the effect on the subpopulation of compliers only, those whose education is sensitive to the instrumental variable. In other words, their education would be different had them been born in a different quarter. And it also estimates the total effect, not the direct effect. Mechanism-based causal explanation is important since mechanism perspective establishes important constraints for an acceptable theory of causation. Mechanism expands ability to answer what-if questions, meaning counterfactuals, deepening our understanding. Spatiotemporality emphasized in mechanism helps making inferences from one setting or population to another. Mechanism-based estimation is also known as the front door criterion, which is a double application of the back door criterion introduced by Pearl in 2000. It assumes all the causal variables, observed or unobserved, and the associated causal relations relevant to an outcome are explicitly illustrated in the model. It identifies the causal effect of a variable on an outcome by augmenting the causal model to include all intermediate variables by which that variable affects the outcome. To illustrate what was mentioned in the previous slide, here is a small example. To estimate the effect of smoking on cancer, we cannot apply the backdoor criterion, because U is an unobserved variable that in this case might be a genetic or environmental factor. So an intermediate variable was introduced, which is TAR. So we can estimate the effect of smoking on TAR and the effect of TAR on cancer by double application of the backdoor criterion. The total effect of smoking on cancer can be estimated as BC. To illustrate more, here is a more detailed example. A study by Winship and Harding. The study aims at specifying mechanism where the age period and cohort variables affect the outcome, political alienation. Model A represents the independent variables P, A, C, corresponding to period, age, and cohort, moving toward the outcome variable through intervening variables, employment, church attendance, and education. Causal effect of PA and C on PA is estimated as B1C1, B2C2, and B3C3. However, when the goodness of fit analysis was done for Model A, the overall model fails the test, along with the subcomponent except for education. It fails both chi-square and the AIC test, meaning that the model needs more variables to show the effect of period, age, and cohort on political alienation. By adding more variables, identification of causal effects can be estimated. Model B is an extended model of Model A. Watergate, Republican president, and employment rate and cohort size are intervening variables that were added to the model between the independent variables and the outcome variable. This extended model shows how interactions between different variables take place. For example, employment, which directly affects the outcome, is not directly affected by age, period, and cohort. Furthermore, education, which directly affects the outcome, is an intervening variable for employment. Model B shows that it passes goodness of fit analysis, both in respect to log likelihood of chi-square and the AIC. This table displays the power of mechanism-based approach in determining the effect of the cause and the outcome. It not only shows that period has the main effect on the outcome, but it also explains why. By having separate equations for each intervening variable and for each causal path, it shows that Watergate and President being Republican are main and key factors in determining why period has the main effect on the outcome. In conclusion, mechanism-based approach distinguishes true causation from statistical association by revealing processes underlying a model. They also provide more insight to causal relationships. And finally, they allow for testing assumptions by allowing the testing of goodness of fit of a given model. Thank you for watching. Please share your comments or questions via email or in the comments box below the video.